Stanley McCandless is the god of lighting when I was a young man. He wrote the book that set the basic fundamentals of all things we do today. Nothing has changed. They are principles. They're not just ideas, they are principles. So, when you read Stanley McCandless's book, A Method of Lighting the Stage, it was an inspiration because he could have said this is the method to light the stage, but he didn't, because he knew that there were so many other things that would come along. So he called it a method of lighting the stage that showed what foresight that this gentleman had. He also wrote a book, not a book, but a pamphlet, bringing that same fundamental principles to architecture. Now, light is a 20th century art, because that's when the light sources began to emerge in the world. And Stanley McCandless was there at the emerging part of this era. And he did lighting that was poetry. It was pure poetry. He was an architect, and he understood all of the values that architecture brought. Architecture is kind of a historic reference for our culture. And you could see that, and he could weave the light into that culture. And he knew that he was lighting for people. And so that was important. The theater people had a different perspective. They were dealing with an audience. They needed to find what would make people aware and have an emotional reaction to a scene. They had to know what triggered that reaction. And they could do it. So there was no science in that. That was all derived from empirical knowledge. So scientists would say that's anecdotal evidence. But if I can see it, that's enough of a message for me. So I don't care how many anecdotes there are. It's, does this work? And that is measurable. If I see people like this, that's what I need to know. So I picked up on that. The college years went by. I was lighting this show, very important, big, major production for the college. And by the time I got to do that, I had read every book on lighting I could find. I read every book. I even learned German so I could read the technical theater stuff in German, because I thought that was there were some wonderful things coming out of Germany. So in order to be able to appreciate that, I took German. So now I couldn't speak, but I could read. So there I am. And I get this idea for lighting the show to use projected scenery. And the big sky drop was 37 foot tall and 97 feet around. And I wanted to do that with one projector. Well, I couldn't find any projector that would do that, so I thought, I know. I will call Stanley McCandless. He's the god of lighting. If he doesn't know, nobody will know. So I called Stanley McCandless. He was a very unusual person because he answered his phone. He did not like anybody to say who's calling, this or that. He'd pick up the phone. If he wanted to get rid of you, he could. He said, what do you wish to do? Where do you go to school? Well, this school where I went to, I think we had the third multi-scene preset board in the world at that time. And Stanley McCandless not only knew about that, he knew the guy who designed the board and everything else, a guy named George Eisenhower. So he said, come in and see me. So I went and I met God. And he said, no, there isn't such a piece of equipment. I was disappointed. But I went back and I said, I had this vision. I will do this. So I went to the technical director and said, you know, I looked up all these different projectors, and there's a projector called a Linabach, and that'll be good enough to do what we need to do. So I will design a Linabach that'll light this thing, and I'll build it in the shop here. He looked at me and he said, go ahead. You think you can do that? Go ahead. So I did it, and it worked. I figured out all the keystoning, this, that, all the technical parts. That was the easy part. It was the vision that counted. But that I had from Leon Friend. And I had the sense of what these projections would do for the drama from Gustav Bloom. And there they were. So I called Stanley McCandless and told him, you know, I solved that problem for myself. He was sort of amazed. But he had taken me around and introduced me to a lot of people at the company. And I had another idea for another show slightly later on. And I rented all this equipment. And the college I went to had all the equipment you'd ever need, you would think. But no, I had an idea. It was an idea for a 2-minute scene. And I rented 50 beam projectors for that 2-minute scene. And the guys where I rented it from ratted on me to Stanley McCandless, said, this crazy kid you introduced us to has now just rented 50 beam projectors, and he's got more equipment than a Broadway show. So when I was getting out of school, I thought I would go and study with Stanley McCandless, because he taught at Yale. McCandless said, I'll give you a job. You come and work for me. When I got the job with Stanley McCandless, I had more credentials bestowed upon me than I deserved. I did not know anything, but they just guilt by association. They thought, if he's Stanley McCandless's assistant, he must know something. Not so, but I learned. And he was a phenomenal, gentle, courtly teacher. And I just was a sponge. And I did. There was nothing that I wouldn't try, you know, and I had nothing to worry about because he was my backup. You know, if he didn't like something or he saw some other thing, I would fix it. It's only a drawing. It's only a piece of paper. It's only a mock-up or a model. I could fix it. In fixing it, what a lesson, because I would see what was there. And I would see what really came out. And that stuck. Light is the medium. And the light is invisible. You know, if you want to see the light, you have to have something for it to reflect off of. So it's hard to describe. I think in Buffalo, there's the Kleinhans Music Hall. And you go in that music hall, when you turn the lights on, it's like poetry. The light fills the space. It's like music fills the room. It's like poetry. And the way he would use the light to compose the scene and to show the architecture of the moment in your effort, because it's coming to the theater is an exciting thing. There's an arrival. There's an anticipation as the curtain goes up. Then there's the unfolding play, and that was a sequence of planned design to reinforce what was going on. It didn't create it, because if you took an empty stage and you ran all of those presets, there's nothing to see until everything is together. The scenery, the actors, the costumes, the drama, the music, whatever it is. And he had a significant insight into that. And that helped me learn to see. What I learned to see from Leon, Gustav, and Stanley was amazing. So he wrote a book, A Method of Lighting the Stage. It's about a little over a half an inch thick. And he wrote all of those principles in that little book. So when it came my turn to write a book, I said, if Stanley McCandless can write all of that in a skinny book like this, I'm going to write a book that skinny that does everything today, in today's language. So I did. I wrote a book, Learning to See, A Matter of Light. And it's been quite well received. It's been translated into Portuguese, and they're considering translating it into Chinese now. So I'm very thrilled about that. So it's motivated by these people, I thought it's my turn to put something on paper. So I did. I've got all these projects standing everywhere that everybody knows. The Statue of Liberty, the Petronas Towers, and so that is not going to be my legacy. My legacy will be all my students and all the people that I've mentored. What Stanley McCandless and all these guys did for me, I'm going to try and do for somebody else. I hope I live to see the person who does better than I did. That will be the ultimate goal of my life.